So there's an unsettling video that has received a lot of attention in the UK in the last few days, and it is from the Almondbury High School, which I understand is just outside Huddersfield. Now, in the video, it involves a completely unprovoked attack on a young guy who happens to be a Syrian refugee. And the bully in question basically goes over to him. It's hard to make out exactly what he's saying, but it's some sort of threat like, "Are you looking at me?" or something like that. It's difficult to make out exactly what he's saying. But he pushes this young guy, whose name is Jamal, and gets him in a headlock, throws him to the ground, then pours some sort of water on him and says, "I'll drown you." Um, Now, this has understandably provoked a lot of anger. It's a completely unprovoked attack. And to make matters worse, the victim already had a broken hand. So, this is already someone in a vulnerable position because he clearly can't defend himself. And yeah, it's provoked a lot of responses about bullying and about racist attacks. Now, like I say, it's hard to make out what is exactly being said in the video, but apparently this young guy, Jamal, has been the victim of bullying at this school before. And that's what caused his hand to be broken. And apparently, the police investigated at that time but dropped the investigation, and it became an internal inquiry. Clearly, there is a problem going on here where this young man is being targeted, and apparently, his sister has also been targeted to the point where she tried to commit suicide. Um, and I feel sickened. Like I say, he's a Syrian refugee, so he has already seen things in his young life that no one should have to see. He's already been through more than most. And he comes to Britain for sanctuary, and, he has to put up with scumbags like this. It's disgraceful. So, what should be done? Well, apparently, a 16-year-old has been arrested. Of course, he hasn't been named. I think that's the first thing that needs to change. I think we need to change the situation where offenders under the age of, I think the threshold must be 17, because this guy's 16 and he isn't being named. Why not? That needs to be changed. Lower it to at least 13 so that any offender over the age of 13 is named and shamed. His name needs to be dirt right now. And I honestly believe there needs to be radical approaches to this sort of bullying. I mean, racist bullying on refugee is particularly disgusting, but any bullying is disgusting. Um, whether it be the victim be black, white, Asian, um, Arab, whatever background the person is, bullying is reprehensible. And it is one thing I must admit that really, I mean, I had my fair share. I had some pretty unpleasant experiences myself, so I know what it's like, and a lot of people do. I'm by no means exceptional. But I honestly think that for too long, I mean, the head teacher has said that we take this matter very seriously and such behaviour won't be tolerated. And he said that for legal reasons, he's restrained on how much he can say, which is probably true. But the school has been accused of not doing enough. And that may well be true if this has happened before and the bully in this case wasn't suspended. Um, I don't know if that's the case or not, but there has been allegations the school hasn't done enough, and they damn well better get their act together and start taking action. The bully needs to be suspended without doubt, but it needs to go further than that. A community sentence isn't enough. I believe there needs to be radical approaches to these sort of people. I quite favour the American scared straight approach, i.e., you terrify the person, not necessarily physical assault, a physical punishment, which I think would be entirely justified, but it wouldn't necessarily be workable. I think what might work is get some sort of authority figure, someone who's intimidating, let's say an SAS commando or a professional boxer, and get them to really get in this guy's face. I don't mean, beat him up. I mean, get in his face to the point where he's wetting himself. And I mean that. Scared straight. scare the shit out of the little shit. Really just make him feel as low as this, because that is the only language that bullies understand. And until we realize that, then this isn't going to change. Weak sentencing is definitely a factor as well, but that's true of crime in general. An unprovoked physical assault like this, it degrades the victim. It's just disgusting. I would advocate some sort of scared straight approach. If not that, then publicly shaming him. Force him to wear a sign saying, "I am a worthless card. I attack defenseless young refugees who have broken hands, who can't defend themselves. I am a worthless card. Look down on me." What we don't need is some sort of pussyfooting around and saying, "Oh, he's got family problems. He needs to be understood," and a mild reprimand. "Oh, well, son, don't do it again." No. If that is the approach the school takes, if that's the approach the courts take, and I don't blame the police, I'm talking about judges and authority figures who have the power to act and just won't. I think that's unforgivable. And I think if the judge in this case doesn't issue an extremely severe sentence, then um, and it's not the only example of vulnerable people being attacked. There was that case, I believe it was in Essex, or I can't remember exactly, but the woman with learning difficulties who had flour thrown over her, might have been Worcester, but don't quote me on that. Then there was the young migrant man who was attacked in Croydon last year by a pack of worthless cards. I think particularly, this case was bad. It's by no means even the worst I've seen. I think even worse is when you get a group of worthless cards attacking an individual. I really, really, really believe that such people need their faces plastered everywhere. I think they need to be shamed to the point where, it impacts their soul. I think they need to be shamed to the point wherever they go, they are spat on. Really. That's what I think of bullies. I think they're the absolute scum of the earth. I would dearly love a minute with this little shit. I really would. Um, I think teachers should be more empowered to take action. Although it has to be said, this was outside a classroom. It looked like it was some sort of sports ground. Um, but my reaction is just like anyone else who has a normal level of thinking. It's sheer disgust and outrage. At the very, very least, the bully needs to be named. It would be a travesty if he isn't. It would be a travesty if there's anything short of severe punishment. Let me know your thoughts. But really, we need to get radical here. We need to, whatever we are doing, it's not enough, because clearly this sort of thing is continuing to go on unabated. Now, I'm realistic. I know that you could probably never totally eradicate it. Scumbags are always going to exist in society, but what society can do is get a much firmer response to them and make them know that it won't be tolerated. And it's all very well the head teacher using that language like, "We don't tolerate it." Prove it. Prove it. Okay, the onus is on you, sir, to prove that you're taking this seriously. And if you don't expel this scumbag, then your words are completely hollow and meaningless. Expelling at the very least. Expulsion, I think, is a pretty minor response. I think because this was a physical assault, um, he needs to serve. I think a custodial sentence is justified, but if not that, at least some sort of radical approach that will make him think twice about doing this ever again. And that also, he clearly knows his victim. This wasn't just some random attack. He clearly knows the victim. He clearly targeted the victim. So he's clearly a threat to the victim. So it needs to be established, what sort of if he's in the same class, what sort of connection or what sort of contact he can have with the victim. Um, Something needs to be done, because it's behavior like this one day, and then the next day you hear about an arson attack and people being killed. That's no exaggeration, particularly in northwest England. So really, I would relish a minute with this worthless piece of shit. He needs to be I think that I do believe that bullies only understand one language and they only respond to one language. What they do is they try to inflict fear and suffering on others because it makes them feel good to attack people who can't defend themselves. And his victim, remember, had a broken hand, so he couldn't exactly. So, get a professional boxer, get an SAS commando, get in his face, and make him feel worthless. I would, I would love to see that. I really would. Now you can call it vigilanteism, but this is clear cut. The video speaks for itself. It's not rumors. It's clear cut. There needs to be that sort of approach. Certainly in racist attacks like this, if racism is indeed the motivating factor, and the video itself is hard to make out, but that's what people are speculating. Um, I think I would not be half surprised if it is. I mean, why is he targeting a Syrian refugee? I think common sense dictates that that is probably part of the motivation, a good part of it actually. But bullying in general, but we need to change something in the UK. There is something rotten at our core, where this sort of wanton violence, this sort of situation, excuse me, just seems to be happening every day. And I don't think you can ever eradicate it completely. But what we can do is significantly reduce the level of this sort of thing happening.